Level 1. The infant. You're born today, healthy by every measure anyone checks. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a strong cry at birth. A few hours later, a nurse does the standard newborn screening. A small heel prick, a few drops of blood onto a card. Most babies cry. It's a sharp, sudden pinch, and they let everyone in the room know about it. You don't cry. The nurse notes it, moves on. Some babies just don't react much. It happens. 8 months old now. You're crawling, exploring, doing what babies do. One afternoon, you reach up and grab the metal grate of a floor radiator. Your hand stays there. No flinch, no scream, nothing. Your mom yanks you back. There's a blister forming on your palm already. You're not crying. You're looking at her, confused about why she's upset. The pediatrician calls it a high pain tolerance. Some kids are just tougher than others, apparently. Around the same time, you start teething. For most babies, this means weeks of crying, drooling, and gnawing on anything within reach to ease the ache in their gums. You go through the same motions, gnawing on your fingers, your toys, the edge of your crib, but without any of the fussing that usually comes with it. Your parents joke that you're the easiest teether they've ever seen. A few weeks later, you fall down a full flight of stairs. 12 steps, hardwood, no carpet. Your parents hear the thumping and run. By the time they reach you, you're sitting at the bottom, looking around like nothing happened. The ER doctor checks you over. X-rays come back clean. No fractures, no concussion. He calls you a miracle baby and sends you home. Nobody connects the radiator, the stairs, and the heel prick yet. They're 3 separate stories parents tell at dinner parties. Cute stories, lucky stories, level 2. The diagnosis. You're 4 years old now, and you're chewing on your own fingers. Not because you're hungry, because you can't feel them. By the time your mother notices, you've already bitten through to the bone, and you didn't cry once. Your life is about to be one long battle against a body that refuses to warn you when something is wrong. The doctors run tests, blood work, nerve conduction studies, genetic panels. 3 weeks later, they have an answer. A mutation in a single gene, one that controls how your nerves send pain signals to your brain. The condition has a name: congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis. CP, for short. Fewer than 100 documented cases exist worldwide. You're one of them. Your parents go quiet for a long time after the appointment. Then the radiator makes sense. The stairs make sense. The heel prick makes sense. None of those were luck. All of those were warnings. Nobody knew how to read. There's no test for SEPA at birth. The only way anyone finds out is by waiting and watching what happens when a child starts exploring a world that assumes everyone can feel it. You go home with a diagnosis and no instruction manual. How do you keep a 4-year-old alive when the only warning system the human body comes with, pain, simply isn't there? Level 3. The vigilant years. 5 years old now, and your life runs on a schedule your friends don't have. Every morning, before school, your mom checks you. Every inch. Arms, legs, back, scalp, between your fingers and toes. She's looking for cuts, bruises, blisters, anything that shouldn't be there. This isn't paranoia. This is survival. 3 months ago, you walked around for 2 full days on a fractured ankle. You didn't limp. You didn't complain. The only reason anyone found out was the swelling. The x-ray showed it was already starting to heal wrong. You also can't sweat. Not even a little. Your body has no way to cool itself down. On hot days, you wear a cooling vest. At recess, a teacher checks your temperature every 20 minutes. If you hit 102, you come inside immediately. Not because you'll feel sick. You won't feel anything. But your organs don't know that, and heat stroke doesn't ask permission. Your eyes are a problem too. Most people blink automatically when something gets in their eye, a protective reflex triggered by irritation. You don't always get that warning. Your corneas get scratched more often than they should. You wear protective glasses, even indoors. At school, the rule is simple. If you get hurt, you tell an adult immediately, even if you don't feel anything. Especially if you don't feel anything. Most 6-year-olds learn the world is full of things that hurt. You're learning the world is full of things that can kill you without a single warning sign. Level 4. The middle schooler. 11 years old, and a new problem shows up. Your teeth. A routine dental visit turns into an emergency. A back molar is decayed almost to the nerve, and you had no idea. No toothache, no sensitivity to cold. Nothing. The dentist tells your parents this is common in kids with SIPA. Cavities don't announce themselves the normal way, so they're caught late, or not caught at all until they become infections. You start going to the dentist every 3 months instead of every 6. Extra x-rays, extra vigilance, just like everything else. The social side gets complicated too. Some kids think your condition is the coolest thing they've ever heard. You become the kid who'll do anything on a dare, because dares don't scare you the way they scare everyone else. Other kids don't believe you. In gym class, you take a basketball to the face, hard enough to leave a mark, and you don't even break stride. A teacher accuses you of faking it when you say, an hour later, that your face feels swollen. She doesn't realize swollen is the only word you have, because it hurts was never part of your vocabulary. That same year, you break your wrist during a relay race. You finish the race. You finish gym class. You don't find out until the nightly check, when your mom sees the swelling and the wrist bent slightly wrong. You've been playing on a fracture for 2 hours. Level 5. The teenager. 14 years old, and independence is starting to creep in, whether your parents are ready for it or not. You're old enough now to do your own body checks. Every night, before bed, you stand in front of the mirror and scan every inch of your skin. Arms, legs, stomach, back, using a second mirror. Scalp, running your fingers through your hair, feeling for anything wet, anything raised, anything wrong. It's part of your routine now, the same way other people brush their teeth. You've learned the hard way what happens when you skip it. Last year, you leaned against a hot oven rack for almost 10 seconds before anyone noticed the smell. Second-degree burn. You felt nothing. Not the heat, not the pain, not the moment your skin started to blister. You've also learned what not to do. No contact sports, no skateboarding, no anything where an injury could go unnoticed until it's serious. Your friends think this is unfair. Some of them think your condition sounds like a superpower. Bro, you're basically unkillable. You don't argue with them anymore. You've stopped trying to explain that the opposite is true. Pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the alarm system. And you're the only kid in your school walking around with the alarm disconnected. You get your first part-time job this year at a coffee shop. Your manager doesn't know about your condition at first. 3 weeks in, you pick up a pan straight out of the oven without thinking, hand it to a coworker, and only notice the blisters that night during your check. After that, your manager knows. Every job you take from here on, someone has to know. Level 6, the young adult. 22 years old, living on your own for the first time. New apartment, new job, new level of responsibility for a body that has never once told you the truth about how it's doing. You've built your life around the gaps. You chose a desk job, not because you're lazy, but because manual labor means more chances for an unnoticed injury to become a serious one. You set phone alarms for body checks 3 times a day, the way other people set alarms for medication. You're dating now too, and that comes with its own version of the conversation. Early on, you tell people the basics. If I get hurt and don't react, it doesn't mean it's not serious. If you ever see a burn, a cut, anything, tell me immediately, because I might not know it's there. Most people find this hard to wrap their heads around at first. A few think you're exaggerating, until the night you cut your hand badly enough to need stitches and didn't notice until there was blood on the counter. 6 months into the new job, it happens. You feel off, not in pain, just off, tired, a little nauseous. Your appetite disappears. For someone else, this would be nothing. For you, it's everything. Because the usual warning sign for appendicitis is severe abdominal pain, and you will never get that warning. You go to urgent care anyway, because off is the only signal your body gives you, and you've learned never to ignore it. The doctor runs blood work. Your white blood cell count is through the roof. An ultrasound confirms it. Your appendix is inflamed, hours away from rupturing. Surgery happens that night. Afterward, the surgeon tells your parents that if you'd waited even one more day, just going about your normal routine because nothing hurt, it could have ruptured. That would have meant a massive infection, sepsis, a hospital stay measured in weeks instead of days. You survived because you've spent your entire life treating the absence of a feeling as information. Most people would have just gone to work. Level 7, the adult. 35 years old now, and the years are starting to show up in places you can't feel, but doctors can see on an X-ray. Charcot joints. That's the term for it. Years of small, unnoticed injuries, a twisted ankle here, a jammed finger there, walking on a hairline fracture for weeks without resting it, all of it adding up. Joints that should have healed clean instead healed wrong, over and over, until the damage became permanent. Your right ankle is one of them. It doesn't hurt. It never hurts. But it doesn't move the way it used to, and an orthopedic surgeon tells you it's the kind of damage usually seen in people decades older. Your corneas have faint scars too, from a lifetime of scratches you never felt happen. Your vision is still good, but not as good as it should be at 35. Last winter, you got frostbite on 2 fingers during a hike, mild but real, because you couldn't feel your hands getting too cold to function. Your hiking partner noticed the color change before you did. It's a small thing in the grand scheme, one more entry in a list that's been growing since you were 8 months old, but it's also a reminder. The list never really stops growing. It just gets managed better. You and your partner are talking about having kids now. SEPA runs in families, passed down through a specific combination of genes from both parents. Before you try, you both sit down with a genetic counselor who walks you through the odds, what testing during pregnancy can and can't tell you, and what early signs to watch for if it turns out your child has it too. You think about your own parents, sitting in that same kind of appointment 30 years ago, with no internet forums, no support groups, figuring it out for the first time with you as the test case. If your child has it, you won't be figuring it out blind. You'll be the parent who already knows the checklist. You decide to move forward, not because the risk doesn't scare you, because you know, better than almost anyone alive, that it's survivable. Level 8. The reflection. People still say it sometimes. I wish I couldn't feel pain. Usually right after they stub a toe, or get a paper cut, or sit through a bad headache. You used to try to explain. Now you mostly just nod. Because here's the part they don't understand. Pain isn't a punishment. It's a gift wrapped in something unpleasant. Every person who's ever felt a sunburn before it blistered, or pulled their hand off a hot pan before it burned to the bone, or noticed a stomach ache before it became an emergency, that person was protected by something you've never had access to, not for one single second of your life. You've survived a fall down a flight of stairs as a baby. A fractured ankle you walked on for 2 days. A burn you didn't notice until it blistered. An appendix that nearly ruptured while you felt fine. Decades of scratches, fevers, and joint damage that never once announced themselves. You're still here. Not because your body protected you. Because you and everyone around you built a life around the fact that it never would. And somewhere right now, in a hospital nursery, a newborn is going through a routine heel prick test. Standard procedure. Mildly painful for about 2 seconds. This baby doesn't cry. The nurse makes a small note in the chart and moves on to the next one. Nobody's looking for what this means. There's no test for it. It'll be years before anyone finds out. And by then, like you, this baby will already be learning to survive in a world that assumes everyone can feel it coming.